Like everything in Ashes of Creation, the economy is a very complex system. The Ashes of Creation economy has the potential to be so much more interesting and dynamic than most modern MMOs, with the heavy player-driven dynamics behind it. In this first video, and what will be a series of videos I am making about the Ashes of Creation economy, I want to first abstract away as much of the complexity as I can, and then we will slowly start to add the complexity back in. In my opinion, the most important formula for any MMO is the following formula. How much gold is generated in an MMO minus how much gold is destroyed equals the total gold in the virtual economy. This formula is the basis of what this first video will be about. In later videos, we will get into player-to-player trading systems where gold is not destroyed, but instead there is an exchange of gold for materials or items between players. And once we get through all of that, I will get into some speculation on how I think players can potentially maximize some of these systems to earn the most gold possible. That video will be highly speculative, as we do not yet have a game to play and experiment with, but I will pull from my past experiences and the available information we do have about the design of this game. There will likely be a big difference between the best methods of earning gold early after launch versus a few months or years after launch. Let's start to dig into this formula by starting with the gold generation side of the equation. In MMOs, the currency creation is handled much differently than how it happens in the real world. In the real world, in most cases, a central bank carefully controls how much currency is in circulation. They employ teams of PhDs who monitor thousands of economic data points to try to keep the money supply at a level that is conducive to a healthy economy. In MMOs, this currency generation is handled much differently. Essentially, each player in an MMO has their own personal money printer that is tied to how many quests they complete and how many mobs they kill. Performing these tasks creates new gold currency that is now in the system. In a lot of MMOs, every player having their own money printer has created a massive issue for the developers, and that is controlling inflation. With so much money being printed every day, prices can and often do rise very fast. This is a problem because it creates a huge issue for new players that join months or years after launch. Earning enough gold to be able to purchase things becomes a challenge and can turn off new players. It also creates massive wealth gaps, as those that are the most efficient at generating gold or earning gold from other players can really separate themselves and become economically dominant. Which is why MMOs have gold sinks. These are a requirement, and Ashes has no shortage of them. So what I want to do is start with the known ways gold is generated in Ashes of Creation. These are quest rewards and hunting certificates. Quest rewards are pretty standard, and there really is not much to talk about with that. They have never really confirmed that quests will reward gold, but in Alpha 1, that was what we saw, and I assume that is the plan going forward. Hunting certificates are a very different take on gold generation from mob kills. Instead of mobs dropping gold directly, they will instead drop certificates that can be turned in at hunter NPCs in nodes. These certificates are items such as a wolf dropping a pelt, not a piece of paper, and each of these certificates can only be found at its specific economic region. For example, Economic Region 1 might have gray wolf pelts, Economic Region 2 might have red wolf pelts. These are the only areas you can find that type of pelt. The certificates do not have the same value at every hunter NPC. The value of these certificates has a lot of factors that affect their price. The level of the node you turn them in at, the distance to the node you turn them in at versus where you collected them, the region you turn them in at. There are 5 economic regions in Ashes of Creation. Turning in at a different region than the one you collected them from will reward a better gold return. The number of that type of hunting certificate that are being turned in at that node and that economic region. Steven has mentioned that there is the potential to increase the value of these hunting certificates by 5x by maximizing these 4 factors. As an example, imagine I collect gray wolf pelts at Economic Region 1, and again, this is the only place you can get gray wolf pelts. Taking them to a stage 6 node in Region 5 would therefore have the best chance to give the maximum return as long as another person or group has not recently turned in at that node. I really feel like this system is not well understood, and I think it runs much deeper than a lot of people think. Early in a server's life, this will likely be the best way to get gold, and those that figure out this system fully will be the ones to get an early economic advantage. It is also very important to note that you do drop a percentage of these hunting certificates when you die, the amount depending on what PvP flagging state you are in. I have talked about the PvP flagging states in my Crash Course Part 2 recently if you need to know more about that. But basically there is a normal death penalty in which players will drop a percentage of their certificates and other materials. A non-combatant death penalty where this drop percentage is reduced by 50%, and a corrupted penalty where this drop percentage is increased 4x. Gold is not dropped in Ashes of Creation, but one of the primary methods of creating new gold can drop, which creates a big risk-reward dynamic that is rarely present in MMOs within the gold generation system. The risk can be mitigated by quickly converting these certificates at the nearest hunter NPC, but the reward is also smaller in this case. So this covers the first part of the equation, the gold generation side. Next, let's talk about the gold destruction side of the formula, or what is commonly called gold sinks. Keep in mind, Ashes is a very destructive world, which is where most of the gold sinks come from. The official wiki does have a list of gold sinks that came from a Steven quote, but I think there are actually quite a few more gold sinks than what is listed here, and I also don't agree that corrupted players dropping items is a gold sink because players can pick those items up. If players don't loot the items, or if they deconstruct the items from materials, then it would be a gold sink, but not in every case. So with that in mind, here is what I view to be the gold sinks in Ashes of Creation. Item, durability, and repair. This includes both a gold and material cost to repair items. Potions and consumables. Gold and materials will be needed to craft consumables, which will be destroyed upon consumption, thereby destroying the gold needed to create them. Siege weapons, which need to be crafted for sieges and can be destroyed during the siege. We don't know if the siege weapon is not destroyed during the siege, if it can be reused in another siege, or if you have to craft the siege again. Over-enchanting, which has a chance to decay or destroy items. Salvaging items, which gives the player some of the materials but not all of the materials that were used to craft the item, and gives a chance for a recipe to drop. Some recipes can only be attained from salvaging, which gives an extra reason to salvage items. Caravan destruction causes a percentage of the materials to be lost. Some are turned into certificates, and the victor can turn those in at a node. Node sieges. If a node is sieged, even if the defenders win, there will likely be damage to node buildings and player housing that will require repair. If a node is destroyed by the attackers winning the siege, then the node is taken all the way to stage 0, and all the buildings are destroyed. A portion of the materials and items in the node's warehouse will be destroyed, and the rest becomes lootable by victors. Other node buildings will also have some materials sunk, and some materials that are lootable. Node atrophy can also occur if players are not active enough in a node. This can de-level nodes, disable services, and in a worst case scenario, even destroy the node. Monster coin events can destroy or disable node buildings. Dynamic events can also destroy node buildings or weaken a node's siege defenses. Taxes. Players will have to pay a property tax for their player housing. Transactional fees. The auction house for the nodes that have one will have a listing fee. Player stalls will have a fee. There are likely other fees that we will find out about later that are a gold sink as well. And finally, caravan NPC escorts. This is a speculative one, but if players can hire NPCs to help escort their caravans, I assume this could be a one-time thing and you have to rehire them each time. Or they can be killed and then you would have to hire new NPCs. This is a potential gold sink as well. There are probably more gold sinks that I haven't thought of or that have not been revealed. In addition to all of these things, Ashes of Creation has a world manager algorithm. This algorithm is used for pricing of hunting certificates, which we talked about earlier, but is also used for a lot of other things. For the purposes of the gold sink discussion, this algorithm is used to adjust the prices of NPC sold items. Players make basically everything in Ashes of Creation, whether it be items, consumables, gear, but there will still be vendor sold items that are used in the crafting of consumables and gear. This algorithm will dynamically adjust the prices based on player population, and presumably this is a dynamic adjustment that could help keep inflation in control as well. And yes, we do have a lot more gold sinks than we have ways to generate gold, at least based on what we know so far. We don't know any numbers behind these systems, but in general I find it a good thing that there are so many gold sinks in the game. I also like that there is some dynamic adjusting of vendor prices and pricing of the hunting certificates. This gives the developers some leeway to have some control over the economy by tweaking some numbers on the back end. It is a player-driven economy, but it is also important to have an economy that does not have runaway inflation. The devs seem to have the mechanics and tools in place to prevent that. I would also like to note that the nature of this game, where players are building cities from the ground up and every single item and usable thing in game is made by players, in theory will probably have a lot of inflation. At least that would make sense. In theory, the GDP of Vera is going from 0 to a much larger number by the time a server has several metropolis nodes. In that case, you will have inflation. It is the destructive side of this equation that balances that out a bit. With that in mind, every server will be different. Some servers might have a lot of sieges, but not a lot of successful sieges. This server might have a moderate level of inflation. Another server might have very little sieging or PvP in general. This server might have a lot of inflation because in this case, a lot of the gold sinks are not being utilized. Another server might have a lot of successful sieges that return nodes back to 0 and a lot of caravan attackers. This server might actually have very low inflation or even deflation, recession, or even stagflation. It will be interesting to see how diverse the economic states of each server will be. And that is all I have for this part 1 of a very deep dive into the Ashes of Creation economy. In this video, we just covered the gold generation and destruction mechanics. In the next video, I will get into all the details of the lateral value transactions, where gold is not created or destroyed, such as player-to-player trading, the artisan systems, and how that will affect the overarching economy of Vera. If you liked this video, consider subscribing. With that, I will see you in the next video.